Hi everyone, this is Shamvi from Designhill and your host for today. I hope you and your families are keeping safe and well. I hope everyone is keeping good. I would like to welcome you for this session with our amazing speaker for today, where we are going to talk about how to ace product styling as a professional photographer. Today's event is brought to you by Designhill, world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of businesses and individuals alike who can source high quality designs from professional designers and buy unique products created by independent artists. So, moving ahead, let me introduce you for our speaker for today. We have with us Cath Lowe. Cath is an experienced professional photographer with a demonstrated history of working in the visual industry. She is skilled in commercial photography, food, drink, events, restaurant photography, as well as business and family photography. She also loves to share her knowledge about photography both on camera and on phones. She is also a winner of a number of awards. Welcome, Cath, and thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule and joining us today for this event. Would you like to say a quick hi to the audience? Cath, you'll have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, and thank you Designhill for asking me on here. We're just going to talk about everything about product styling today.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I'd just start off by saying, well, actually, I think you've given the introduction as to who I am, and also really what is product styling, because I think in a way it differs slightly. It's slightly different to photography, in that I always think photography is the structure of the image, the lighting and the lenses and the choice of aperture and focal length, and like an architect creating this beautiful building. And the product styling is the what you put on in the interior. It's like choosing the furniture and the colors and where it's going to go. The thing that actually creates the emotion within that building, like a sort of interior designer.
Great.
And it's really what you're trying to do with product styling. You want to create an emotional, some emotional response in the consumer, because you've got a client's product. You want the consumer to look at that image and say, "Oh, I really want that," and then go out and buy it, and then your client's really happy. So that's really important.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So great. So before we start the session, guys, here's a big announcement. We are giving away certificates to all the attendees who will stick around till the end of the session. You can't just miss the chance, okay? So just stay till the end. Also, you can take a screenshot of this event and share it on your Instagram story. And also do not forget to tag Designhill DH and Cath Lowe Photo. The handles will be in the chat section. Also use a hashtag Designhill Events. One lucky winner will have a chance to win a PS gift card, that is print shop gift card worth $50. Having said that, let's just quickly look at what Designhill is all about. All right, so that was all about Designhill, and now we are all set to start the session. Guys, if you have anything that you want to ask Cath, do put it on the questions tab, which is just beside the chat section. We have also rolled out some polls in the poll section, so do not forget to answer them. Hey, so Cath, let's begin the session. Over to you.
Well, I thought first of all we'll show a short video of me actually doing styling, product styling. Just to show you exactly what goes on. And I'd say to everyone here, if you want to see more of these videos, I put them up on my Instagram. So I think I can I'll just send this out. That's I don't know if that's, yes, that's me. So you can see more of these. And once we've seen the video, then we're going to talk about all the work that has to go on with the client before you can actually get to that shooting phase, because in some ways that's actually way more important in terms of finding out exactly the style you're going to use and how you're going to shoot it. So if you want to show the video.
Yeah.
And I think if you show the next two images, the next image on the oh, not that. No, that's not that. It was just the image that came after the video. Nope.
Just a minute, Cath. I'll just, it is there in the PDF, right?
Yeah, it just came straight after the video.
Yeah.
Just to show the final images that I got out of that.
Just a second. Just a second, Cath.
No, it's no the word.
Yeah. It's there in the PDF, right? On the first page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just give me a moment. It's
yeah.
just.
I mean, I can start talking if you want.
Yeah. Just a minute. You can talk, Cath. I'll just show.
Yeah. So when a client contacts you and says, you know, I want you to shoot my product, it's like, well, hey, that's really good news. Oh yes, those were just to show the final images that came out of that. And quite a few of the props are not even showing, but they create a slight shadow. They may be at the top of the picture. There were like little cups and things just to give a hint that there's something else going on there. So yes, I was just going to talk about everything. You know, when the client, the very start of a shoot, client contacts you, says, please shoot my product, and you're like, well, hey, you know, good news. But you can't shoot anything until you totally understand what the client wants. And that's where you just need to ask a load of questions. I call all these questions a creative brief because it sounds a bit more fancy. And really, you've got to find out from them what the product is, what the message is they want to convey about that product, who's the target audience, you know, what gender, what age, also the target audience who are going to use the product may not be the same target audience as who is going to buy the product. Because if it's a male aftershave, it may be that actually more women buy it. So the photographs have to be slightly more targeted to women. You need to find out if it's a luxury or budget item, where are the images being used, you know, do you need to shoot them landscape for a website, square for Instagram, and what are the brand colors? So they're all questions you need to ask the client. And then something I find incredibly helpful is to create a mood board, because this will help you visualize the images. And I use Pinterest. There's many other things out there, but I think I've got some images as well to show you. This was from a shoot last year, to show you the mood board that we created with the client, and then a few of the final images. It was a The client was a Bordeaux wine, and they wanted to do a cookbook with their family recipes. And they kind of said, oh, we want barefoot luxury. But that's a very vague concept. So I had to help them understand what they wanted, and really put lots of images online. I put a lot of the images on, and then they went up there and took some down they didn't like and added more. So it's very much a joint work to help you understand what they want. And you really, really cannot photograph anything until you really understand what they want. So I don't know if you can find the images of the mood board with the images that were the end images that went in the recipe in the cookbook.
Cath, you can take over the PDF. It's on the.
I don't know how to. Okay, can I see if I can go on? Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yeah. Okay, so this was the mood board. This was for the cookbook was 4 seasons, so this was for the winter season. We put together all these images online on the mood board for them to see, and then I just thought I'd show you. These were the final images. So just to, hopefully it's that to that. It helps me enormously to be able to work from that mood board. And then we also had to do, this was the spring one, spring mood board, and those were the final images. And it wasn't as clean cut as shooting all the spring ones on all the one day and all the winter ones on one day and all the summer and autumn on different days, because the chef chose the images the food that made sense to cook on that day. So we had to keep swapping between seasons. So, I mean, are there any questions so far? Or shall I just carry on?
Yeah, just carry on, Cath. We'll have a Q&A session.
Okay. So once you've worked out what you want the style you're going to shoot in, you then need to drill into props. Choose your props. They're sort of vitally important, but they must play a background role. Their whole purpose there is to sort of enhance the hero, which is your product. They must make sense. You don't want to have products on there that don't relate to that product in some way. So you're just a number of images. Can you still hear me?
Yes, Cath.
So pull together a whole load of props that could go in. You won't use them all, because the one thing you don't want to do is over clutter, but you want them there as possibilities. So I think you can see from these images the kind of props that we used for these. Size of props is really important. You don't want to overshadow the main product. You don't want to make it look very small. And I think I've done this one just to show you a mistake I made. This is, what size is this bottle of gin? This luckily wasn't for a client. I was just shooting for myself, and I was very pleased with the final image until I looked at it and thought, hang on, that could be a miniature bottle. It's actually a big bottle of gin, and I've made it look tiny by using props that are much bigger than it. So that's just something to be aware of. So what are we doing? Props. You use props are there to enhance your image. They can help create depth, and they can create they can lead your eye to the image. I think I've got a few here. So here, the asparagus, I've put it onto a prop, which is actually just a load of sort of pages torn out of a book and slightly soaked in tea to make them look a little bit older. And everything is dancing around the main product just to add a little bit of color and interest, but not detract from it at all. And in the red currant ones, likewise, use a bit of the edge of a table or something, which creates a lot more depth, and also makes it look 3D. And I think the following one was also, again, how to create sort of a 3D effect when you put your main image in the middle, and you've got all the props going on around it. So backgrounds, I'd go, your backgrounds also is very important. Again, you just don't want it, you want it to enhance, not detract. And when you're doing it, remember, a light background will reflect out light and a dark background soaks it up. It's all to do with the style you want, but you also, the color of the background is very important. Well, we can look at color in a minute. The color, obviously the background mustn't clash in any way with the foreground. We'll look into that in a minute. Before we do, I think we're going to look at, these ones. Is that what we wanted? Sorry. These ones. Oh yes, so I was going to talk a little bit about design, you know, when you're actually laying things out and the visual design you put within it. There's various sort of design rules. Now, all rules can be broken, but they are there for a reason. And one of the really quite important ones is sort of rule of thirds. So you tend to put, if you look at this whiskey bottle being poured, the very main object is not in the center. If you were to divide your page up into thirds, you tend to put it on the main hero product on an intersection of those lines. It's again with the salad up here, or the courgettes, you're looking for not having things in the center, even the drinks that are splashing down in a lower third. It's the same with using a rule of three, that you often put 3 things in rather than 2. It apparently is to do with the brain, and the brain likes, if things are completely like 4s and 2s, they can't reorder it. But if things are slightly to the side, or there's 3 of them, your brain finds it more interesting. It enjoys it more, and the whole thing you want to do is for people to spend longer on that image, to be looking at it for longer, and then hopefully, you know, they'll want that product. And in the same way, you've got what I call kind of leading lines. You want a sort of movement within the image. You come, say, on the drink one, you come in one side of the image and go all the way across to the second third as such, and come down into it. Say the courgettes, if you follow the yellow round, you're going on a little bit of a journey, which again just makes your eye stay on that product for a little bit longer. So now, not everything has to be in the middle. Not everything has to be on the 2/3. You can put things in the middle, and many times it works as such, but especially, say, with the egg one, if you've got something that is symmetrical like that, you know, you're going to plonk it straight in the middle. So all rules can be broken for different ways, but they're there for a reason. I always leave a lot of space. If you're photographing someone, they may want to have writing on it, in which case they need the space, but also I think it gives the image room to breathe. Don't overclutter, or it can be a little bit confusing. Your eye doesn't know where to go. So what we're doing next. Oh yes, these I put in for, these are all to do with just how you style your image within the image. It's the interior design of it. And these are to show leading lines and shapes. Everything kind of flows, say, from the apples round the dishes in a kind of C, they call it a C curve, or it can even be an S curve. It's attractive to look at, and the eye travels from one side of the image into the middle and round to the other side. And say on the soup one, you're traveling in from the green bowl at the top, And then, you know, the center bowl is the important one. So you've got two hands around it. It's like telling a story and creating some visual interest. It's really the job that you're doing. And I know these are all food, and many of you may be product photographers rather than food photographers, but there's really not very much difference. So this could be, it's the same if it's, you know, a product of some kind as to the same as a bowl of food. Obviously, very often these images have got the item, you know, the box or the food packet. I shoot them both with the packet in and just with as the food. So I think we were now. Oh, so I think we're going to talk about color next. Oh, I think we just one more picture I put in here, which is again using using your hands or your body if you want to again create more interest. If you do that, remember your clothes treat them as a prop. So you've got, you know, I have this grey shirt which sort of lives with my props because it doesn't stand out in any way. You wouldn't want to go and wear a shirt like I'm wearing today. Because your eye would immediately be attracted to the red and not go to the product. So how are we doing? We can go on and talk about colour. I don't know. So if we look at colours, again, there's some rules that really help you with how to choose the colours you're gonna put within your image. I think as a rule, I'd always say, this is my personal thing, I really, really like shooting with just two colours, say pink and grey. Grey is, you know, just a background colour, but I wouldn't really do more than three colours. I think beyond that, you're creating too much noise. So three colours is quite normal. Yeah, just be careful when you have too many colors, it jars. This wheel is called the sort of color wheel, and it's part of color theory, and it's this thing that certain colors go together. So it's showing you that opposite colors go together. And if you've ever seen something like an orange, is really hard to photograph. Orange is a bright color. But if you put it on a blue background and you see how the orange and blue are sort of opposite each other, suddenly it just, you know, it sings. It's like, wow, it looks really good. So one way of doing colors is to pick opposite ones. Another way, which I probably do a lot of, is monochromatic. So you're really picking many shades of the same color. I don't think I could pick, you know, all the same shade because I don't have props that are all the same shade. It would be impossible to even find. So it kind of happens quite naturally. But this is what I mean about almost shooting with just two colors. You've basically got pink and gray in there. And you need, when you're doing this, you need to be very careful of the light, the time of day you're shooting and the color of the light, because that can obviously really, I know it's getting on to white balance, but you can end up with a lot of blue in there if it's early morning, or a lot of yellow if it's, you know, full midday sunshine. So just be aware that's another color of your image, and you've got to balance it and make sure that it's not too strong. And then another side of the color wheel, which, to be honest, I struggle to, this is possibly the same as the monochromatic, I struggle to really find one where I used, I think here, oh yes, because I was going on the yellow, this is the yellow and green. So you've got yellow and green within here. It's sort of three colors side by side, which, you know, work very well together. So I think that's what I've got in terms of pictures. I think now we could talk about what you need to do, actually do the shoot, the equipment, and I mean, I think probably the most important thing that I find about when I'm doing a shoot is to shoot tethered, because to create the the visual imagery that looks really good. I need to see it on a computer screen. You can't do it from the back of your camera. And you don't want props touching your image, and you can't really see that in the tiny screen back camera. So, you do need a lead going. I shoot into Lightroom, and I will, the actual little bit of fiddling and making sure that the frayed bit of the linen is showing rather than a folded edge, or that a product isn't touching something, or a flower is pointing exactly the right way I want it to go, bending the way I want to go. It does take a lot of time. I think when I first started doing it, it's requires a certain level of sort of perfectionism that doesn't come naturally to me. But I've learned that you just have to keep, you just keep moving things until it really works. And it will show, because there's images that are almost there, and there's images that, go, wow. Oh my God, I can look back at so many images that are just nearly there. I think we're all really critical, and you can always see things you should have done better. But you might as well, by shooting tethered and seeing the image come up, you can really do an awful lot of the work and make it look good in that moment. So
Cath, on that note, I would take a mid-roll, and probably then we can start talking about the technical part of it, all the technical part of it. So guys, I'm sure everyone is enjoying this interesting and such an insightful session with Cath. So guys, just stay tuned, and we will be right back to hear more from Cath.
I've always been creative, and I've always been creative, and always been an artist. As a young girl, I used to sell them for a quarter. I used to sell them for a quarter, and I just fell in love with it. It just grew into a passion of mine. I started looking on the web, and it came across Designhill, and they had a design contest. They had a design contest. I entered it, and I won. And I was like, oh, this is really great. I can pick and choose what type of logos or design projects I want to work on. And it allows me to be creative, keep my hands, with my tools and working. So it's kind of nice. It's really easy to use. You can scroll through the projects, and there's sections that you could go by. It's really easy. There's a few clients who have come back to use the one-on-one projects. There's one client in particular, she owns a vintage shop, and I designed her logo, and she came back. She needed a design for a flyer, and she really liked the illustrations that I did for her, so she came back a couple of times with projects. I would recommend it, especially if you're a designer that's starting out and you want to learn from other designers, seasoned designers. It's a place to keep in the game and keep using your tools. It makes me feel great, and it kind of confirms that I should be doing this. And I love to see logos that I've designed out, and proud of that. And I think that the clients are so happy that their logo represents what they do and makes them look good. It's a collaboration. It's good for me, and it's definitely good for them.
All right, guys, so we are back again with our awesome guest, Cath. Guys, don't forget to ask your questions in the questions tab and answer our polls. So yes, Cath, over to you. Just a second.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, I mean, I just say, do ask any questions, because I'm just going to run through sort of what I use and why.
So there are a lot of questions coming down, Cath. So I thought that probably we'll just finish up the session on the workshop part, and then I'll start the question answer session.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just I use Canon. I use 5D Mark III, and I use my sort of go-to lens is 100mm macro. I do have the 50 and a 24-70, which are both useful at times. What do I do? I shoot with both natural light and artificial, and I use both. I think it depends. You do get a slightly different look, and I mean, I live in the UK, and it's it's dark through the winter from from sort of 3:30 in the afternoon. You couldn't just exist on natural light if you're doing a restaurant shoot all day or something. You have to be able to use artificial light. For artificial, I use my Canon flash sometimes, especially on location, because it's just easier to carry around. I've got the 580 EX2, and I also have here, I've got a couple of Bowens lights with soft boxes, which are very useful. Gosh, I remember I bought them about 15 years ago, and being horrified at buying at the price, and how could I ever justify spending this much on equipment? I'd already bought the camera and everything, but I have to say they've never gone wrong once, touch wood. And so some good studio lighting is invaluable for shooting through any type, when shooting through the evening, anything. So yes, with those I have soft boxes. I have soft boxes for my flash. Sometimes if I want to be more dramatic, I won't use a soft box. I'll have it as a bare bulb, and just probably have a small diffuser. I have diffusers, and I have neck curtains, all sorts, to hang over windows if you want to, if the light's too strong. I find neck curtains really useful, just if you've gone to on location again at a restaurant or something, and you need to cut down the light that's coming in, you can just clip these things everywhere. What else do I have? I have reflector, very important, because I tend to, so food and products I'll shoot from the side, sometimes from the back, especially if it's a bottle and you want the light to come through it, but very often from the side, and then reflect light back in. You should have the light this side, and you reflect light back in on that side, because you want to give shape to your product. You want, if you shoot from the front, which is how you do portrait photography, because it's really flattering and gets rid of all the wrinkles, it tends to make the face more 2D, which is flattering for a face. But if you do that to a product, you make it look flat, and you need to see the shape with a bit more light on one side and reflected back in light on this side. So yes, couldn't do without a reflector. And I have also like little bits of silver foil or a mirror. Sometimes you need to angle just a little more light in on the label. What else do I have? I have, yes, I shoot tethered, and I have a shutter release, so that I'm not in any way jogging my, and a tripod. Couldn't do any of this without a tripod, because it allows you to get on with this. It keeps your camera in one place, so that if you need to shoot a few images and put them together in Photoshop, your camera's in one place, they're all the same, and it allows you to get on and do all the styling within the picture. I think that's probably all I can think of actual equipment. I shoot, what do I shoot? I shoot mainly probably at, somewhere between 5.6 and, gosh, 9 something. It depends what the product is. I don't like to go too far down to sort of 2.8 or anything. I don't like it when you can only see the corner of a cake in focus or something. I want to see a bit more. So especially, and that the client doesn't want, they don't want their the label of their wine bottle or whatever it is too out of focus. Yeah, that's, and because I've got the tripod, it doesn't matter what speed I'm shooting at unless there's movement within the picture. And then, yes, you've got to make sure your shutter speed is going to cope with that. As far as props go, because it's quite, quite a lot of, quite a lot. And I've built them up over the years. Mainly, I have to say, from charity shops or house clearance shops or eBay. But when it comes to each shoot, I talk to the client and we come up with, the visual mood board, and then I'll say to them, so what have you got? What can you send over? And very often they have some really good props, or they know someone who does. And this is, perhaps I'm talking from the point of view of shooting. I shoot for small and medium-sized brands. Now, when I have shot for larger brands, there is a prop stylist, and that's really, really lovely to work with, because they go off to prop shop and hire all the required props that look really good and are all the right colors and look beautiful. But very often I find the client doesn't have the budget for that. So I'm talking from the point of view, if they don't have the budget, you've got to supply it, but just ask them, get them to help. And gosh, backgrounds, mixture of, I make a lot of my own. I use MDF wood and paint it. Or, I find myself peering, when people are throwing things out and they've got skips outside their houses or something, or there's a builder site, I'm always like sort of peering around to see if there's something that, I have a wonderful piece of metal that I got that way. So yeah, I always have my eye out for an interesting bit of material or piece of wood. I have fence paneling, which, I've painted. You can, there's quite a lot out there you can sort of use. So yeah, and I think if you want to see all the variety of props and backgrounds I've got, again, on my Instagram page, which is at Cath Lowe Photo, you can see lots going on there. So I don't know what else should I be covering? Or should we go on to any questions now? I don't think we need these. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can. So we can go down to the questions, Cath. We have a lot of questions. People are like really, really enjoying the session.
Yeah, well, I think it's better that I answer questions now rather than just keep talking.
Yes. So we have a question from John. Hi, do you use post-production software?
Yes, I do.
Like
yes. So,
Lightroom for your final output and or straight out of shots?
Yes, I shoot straight into Lightroom, and I always do some, a bit of, the highlights or the shadows, putting in a bit more black, or taking the shadows up or down, depending on what I want. I will play with the white balance there. I don't tend to touch contrast too much, but obviously exposure if it needs a little more or a little less. So I always do some work in Lightroom first. And then to sort of do the full edit, I go into Photoshop. And there mainly, I mean, ideally you don't have too much work, because you've seen, if you shot tethered, you've seen it on the screen, but there's always something, and sometimes I'll be putting together images to create an even better one, or removing, like, if you're putting a few, if you something there's a few, I've put some crumbs in there and there's a few too many, then I'll be removing them in Photoshop, or I'll be cloning some and putting in a few more or something.
Right. Okay, great. So John, your question is answered. So there goes another question. Could you lightly touch upon your go-to lighting studio setup?
So I suppose for images that really pop, I would choose to use artificial light. Well, I talk through both. Artificial, either light, to be honest. I'll always have it from the side, or even sort of 3/4 back, depending on what that product is. If the product's very dark, it will be at the side, because you do need a little bit of light to wrap around the front, because you can't see what it is. If it's a very light product, you can go through to sort of 3/4 back and shoot from there. So I'll have the strongest light to the side or slightly back from side. And then I will have, on the opposite side, I will hold a reflector to bounce light back in. I will, what I very often do as well is I like to sort of control that light. So say there's light, you know, I've got my light on the left-hand side. I will then create some, using, you know, black paper, or I often just put a box beside the set to block light, so that the light doesn't fall on the background, or it doesn't fall on the very front of the image, not where the product is. Product will be lit, but say some of the props, I want them to not be so bright, so that the light is then coming through a much narrower gap. It creates a bit more drama, and it also directs the light. The light just falling on the product means that your eye very much is led there.
Right. So exact positioning is very important in product photography. Great. So we have another question. Adhika asks, "Hi Cath, how do you choose live props, wardrobes to complement the product? You know, for example, if we will take a photo of a wine product, how do we choose the props? Is the props that we choose need to be has meaning, or is it just the visual purpose?"
Well, I think they need to have some meaning. So, but you can also get away with a few sort of neutral type products that, you know, can go in a lot of shots. You know, a glass vase or some dried flowers or something can fit in, or a palm, you know, like a sort of, you know, green palm leaf with some interesting fronds or something. There's some things that I think of as neutral props that can add interest and go in many different types of images. But your wine bottle, you know, wine glasses, corkscrews. Now you can also have some water glasses, say, in the background, and put some water and some ice in them, because then the light just hits them and they're in the background, but they create a little bit of interest there. You can obviously put food in with wine bottles. So everything, yes, things do have to tie in, but there's quite a range of things that can tie in.
So Adhika, one has to think through the props. Of course, it is not just the visual, but yes, the meaning of the product should come out from the props.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But as I said, you know, leaves or things can come in anyone, and they do, you know, they do help create interest. Yeah,
absolutely. So I hope, Adhika, your question is answered. Audrey asks, so what are the suggested props for a clothing brand product styling? You know, especially tank tops or t-shirts kind of clothing. What type of props would you suggest?
Okay, so my immediate question would be: are these, you know, or are the t-shirts going to be on someone, or are they going to be just the t-shirt itself? Because if it was just the t-shirt itself, well, you know, you've got to display it. How are you going to display it? Where are you going to hang it? You know, I'd sort of, you know, I'd be thinking, do you put a wire across, you know, string across and hang it on pegs, or are you going to drape it on something? As far as props would go, then this is it's a very wide-ranging subject, because this comes back to the you know, the creative brief and understanding what they'd want from this image to really go into it. Because either you've got it as a sort of, you know, hanging or a flat lay, and gosh, with a t-shirt, you know, or you've got someone wearing it. But either way, I would think, what kind of person is going to be wearing this t-shirt? What kind of thing are they going to be doing? You know, should we just create, should we have a cup of coffee and the edge of a laptop, or a note, a book and a pen or something? Or are they going to be outdoorsy? Should we go and put it, in some sand as though it's by the beach, and have some, a pair of flip-flops in there beside it? Because of course, clothing, you can put any other types of clothing in there. You don't want them to, you only want the edge of them, the hint of them, because obviously that's not the, you don't want people to look and wonder whether they're meant to be buying the t-shirt or the flip-flops, but a little hint or edge would be really nice. And then a bit of lifestyle. I'd be looking at, what lifestyle you're trying to convey, coming back to the coffee or the book or the bit of sports equipment or some flowers, and that'll come down to who that product is aimed at.
Yeah, great. So all in all, Audrey, a product brief, a creative brief, a mood board is pretty important. You should always have, before starting any product styling, I believe that's what I learned during the workshop session with Cath, that a creative brief is very, very important to carry on any product shoot. So great. We have so many questions coming down. Okay. So Isabel asks, how does it work with the client to validate the pictures? Do you show them to the client before retouching when you still have the setup ready in case they want anything different?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and I should have mentioned it. So when I'm shooting in Lightroom, I do I make sure the client is around that day. Well, hopefully they're around that day, and hopefully they're around there and then. Because what I will do, I'll do my sort of minor adjustments in Lightroom, and then I will send the image straight off to them. Well, what I tend to do is I have a gallery, which is that, website gallery. I use something called Shootproof, and I put the images straight up into there, and I say to the client, right, look at them there, they're up there now. And in an ideal world, they will almost be live, so that they can comment on them while we've got the setup, and so that they can say, I like it, but I don't like that linen in it. Can you take it out? So you take that out, or they might say, look, I need more space on the left-hand side. So you can deal with it there and then. The world isn't perfect, and very often they're not. They're busy in a meeting, and you have to make that decision. Or do I move on? But the danger is I might have to go back and reset it up. I think it's quite a tricky one, and I'm quite strict with them. They've got to be around to look at them, but they can't always, obviously. So sometimes I will just move on and take the hit if they say to go back, and I have to redo something. But I really, really want them to see them at that stage, because then they are okaying them, and that you're, that they like the job, and then I'm not. I won't. In fact, I actually have my terms and conditions. I won't do reshoots a week later. I'll do reshoots, the following day if there was something they suddenly think, oh, that's really bad. But, they've had plenty of time to look at them, and they need to sort it out there and then. And then what I will do is all those images that are in the gallery, say there's 60 images and they want, 25 images from the shoot. I don't do any, I've done that, light retouching in Lightroom, and they then choose the ones they want from that gallery. And I won't do any full retouching until they've chosen them. Now, because sometimes clients don't completely get that I will fully retouch them, I may retouch one and put it up there and say, look, this is what I can do, because sometimes they need to see a fully edited one to kind of really go, wow. But yeah, that's what I do.
I hope, Isabel, that answers your question. So thank you, Cath. We have another question from Suzanne. She asks, Hi, how do you normally work out pricing with customers and prospective customers who may just want a consultation? Does the size of the business play a role in pricing?
Yes, I mean, gosh, pricing. I still I think it's really it's a difficult one to get right, and you know, everyone is different, so you have to decide what's right for you, and what you feel happy doing the work for. Bearing in mind you've got half a day to a day's editing the following day, so it's not just for, you know, you're not just for one day. And bear in mind the equipment you've had to buy, you know, and everything. And I think sometimes it looks quite expensive, but actually, if you really add up the time and plus the time beforehand, putting together, you know, talk the chat with the client, putting together the, you know, talking them through the mood board, sometimes holding their hand to make them understand what they want. It takes up a lot of time. So I have, you know, well, I suppose I have 2 price lists, and if they are a bigger brand, they get the, you know, more expensive one. But as I said, I work with a lot of smaller brands around here, and they get the slightly the slightly less expensive one. Send it off, and I write a covering letter, and will always say, you know, do come back to me about anything in this. And if they sometimes they will come back and they say, oh, look, Cath, you know, we love your work, but, you know, it's a bit much. Well, if I really like them, if I really like their brand and I want to do it, then I will lower my price. So, but I try not. What do I do? And I do work. I mean, I work with a flower company. I love working in the flower company, and, you know, the pay is dreadful, but it's a highlight once a month. So, you know, and they're nice people, so that's my choice. So yes, I do. But I have just 2 price lists. Otherwise, it would be very confusing.
Right. So we have another question from John. He's asking, is there a rule or guide when to use vignette?
Yeah. Gosh, I would just say that you can do it on, you know, if you've done an image that is on a white background and light and airy, then you can't put a vignette on it because it just looks dirty. But obviously, if you've got a slightly darker background, then yes, you can use vignette. And then it comes down to the mood board that you've decided with the client, and what's their Instagram page already like. Does it fit in with that? And why are you doing it? Well, obviously, a vignette is. I mean, I love vignettes in they concentrate your eye to the product. But sometimes they can look a bit too clunky and a bit too obvious, and you obviously don't want that. So what I'll sometimes do in Photoshop is use, you know, sort of, I will lighten and darken different areas. So rather than it just being a vignette going all the way around, I will darken particular corners, say on the dark side if the light's coming from this side. And I may even darken a little prop if it's sort of standing out too much, just to kind of tone it down slightly. So I definitely do darkening within the image, and it is very often around the edge, but I don't put too much of just a vignette that does the whole image, because I don't want, where the light is actually coming in, I quite like seeing that light coming in. So it's a matter of playing around, depending on the style of image you're doing and the look that you want from it. Right.
Great. So there's another question. Questions are just pouring in. Line asks, what shutter release do you use, Cath?
Gosh. Well, mine is just a cable that plugs into the side of my computer. I don't think, and I may be wrong, I'd love it if someone knew, that with my camera, which is now one of the older ones actually, that I can do it. What I wanted to be able to do was do it, have an app on my phone, and be able to shoot, press a button on that, and that would set the camera off. But when I looked into it, it appeared that my camera the software didn't work with it. So yes, I have to, yeah, that's what I use. It's what I use mostly. And even when it's me in the image, you know, pouring something, very often I've got one arm stretched out with a shutter release at its full length, and then I'm standing beside the image, you know, pouring something. If I really can't reach, then I'll put the timer on. So I've got, like, you know, 10 seconds to run around and get in position.
Right. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question, Nan. We have another question from Erica. Often the job of photography and styling is done by two people. Do you always do both? Which would you give up in order to do the other?
Oh, I'd give up the. I'd love to work with a prop stylist all the time if I could, because they then have a budget to go off and get props that really work with the images you're styling. I think, and again, it comes down to the budget of the client, and you'll just find some have the budget and some don't. But that would definitely be my choice, because if you're the photographer, you're still involved in the styling. You know, and very often, and what I've also done sometimes is work when we did the recipe book. There was a budget for prop stylist, but not for her to be. It was like going to be a certain amount more for her to be on set every day, and the client was getting a little itchy about that. So she got all the props together and actually put them into piles, which was amazing. And then, you know, I did the styling. But I love working with a prop stylist because, you know, obviously whenever you work with someone, you learn, you know, you learn from them, don't you? And it's more fun than working on your own. So yes, if I could just get clients that had the right budget for that, then yeah, that'd be lovely.
Great. Now, Cath, I have a couple of questions for you. What is a shoot tethered?
What's a what?
What is a shoot tethered?
Sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
Probably, just a second. Probably I'm pronouncing it wrong. What is a shoot tethered?
Decorated?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I don't. Sorry, I don't think I can hear this properly. I don't know.
Tethered photography. Oh. Tethered photography. What is it? What is tethered photography?
Oh, tethered photography.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Well, yes, that's what when I said that I couldn't do it without. It's literally a lead leading from your plug it into the side of your camera, and it goes along, plugs into your computer. And so when you take the image will then appear on your computer. And that's where I use the software Lightroom, and the image, almost immediately the image is on your computer, and it's suddenly it's much bigger than being in the back of your camera, and you can really study it and make sure you're getting the light is it's not too bright or too dark, or all that thing about checking the props work and that you've got a nice flow in your image, and that props aren't touching, and all the things that you want to get right, you can look in detail on your computer screen. Oh, and I mean, the leaders, you can get them easily, and they're not expensive, and it makes a very big difference.
Okay. Thank you, Cath. And I have another question for you. How would you market yourself? Give us tips to market yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find Instagram amazing, actually. So I didn't really concentrate on it until about a year or a year and a half ago, and that's been a huge turnaround. So the images that I put on there, I am treating as though it's like advertising for me as such. And so that's and keeping it going and spending time. It does take time, and it's not just a matter of following other photographers on there. You need to follow the brands that you would like to work with. So for example, in the area of the UK where I live, there's a lot of, say, vineyards or restaurants. Well, I follow them, and I have to comment on their sites, and so they notice me, and then they follow me back. And that really does quite often result in it takes a bit of time, that sort of little bit of dancing around, getting to know someone, but that's a very good way of getting the attention of brands who, if you send them an email, it can be a little bit cold calling, and they don't necessarily open the PDF of images you've sent, whereas here they have time to study and look. And I've had some really interesting work come in through that. So that's really is my main one. Now I do emails because often actually to PRs, people who work for a number of restaurants and food brands. It saves time. If you go to an individual brands, I don't quite know who to go to, what level to go to, and it is just one company. Whereas if you go to a company that does public relations for a whole number of brands, again, I will, you send them an email, you send them some pictures, always keep it really brief and chatty, because they must get a lot of those sort of things. But you want choose your images. The images I choose are so careful about, because they're not going to look for very long. Otherwise, that's really, I suppose the other thing is word of mouth. Word of mouth is the best way that you're ever going to get work, because people like to use people that have been recommended to them. So when I do work for a client, I will always ask them for if they could write, a short sentence just to say, well, as long as they were happy with the work that I did, that they can write a short sentence to say that they were happy, and and then I'll use those, and that helps again. I'll use those on Instagram. I'll use those in emails to marketing emails. I use them on my website. LinkedIn is another one which I use. And I suppose everything I shoot on Instagram goes onto Facebook. And I do LinkedIn as well, because you get a different kind of client there. So I don't advertise. I don't pay for advertising anywhere. I think a long time ago someone said, don't waste your money. Reach people in a slightly more friendly kind of ergonomic way, in that sort of what I've just described about chatting on their Instagram page. So yeah, that's what I do.
Great. Thank you so much, Cath, for your patience, for the question answer round. So, all right, guys, this brings us to an end of this wonderful workshop with Cath. This was indeed a value-packed session, although there is a lot more that we could have learned from Cath. But unfortunately, we are limited by time here. So I hope you guys loved the session, because I personally did, learned so much from you, Cath. Once again, I would like to thank you, Cath, for taking out time to be a part of this event.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for all your questions. And if you want to know any more, follow me on Instagram and ask some more questions.
Yes, guys, this is not where it ends. We have a lot more events lined up for you guys in the coming days. So if you guys are interested and haven't registered yet, I'm putting the link in the events section, in the chat section, where you can find all our upcoming events and register. Also, you can check out our old events. To watch this session and other such wonderful sessions, subscribe to our events section and our YouTube channel. You can find out the link in the chat section. Also, we have recently launched an uber cool design tool called Studio. You can create some cool design assets for your business just for free, using Designhill Studio tool. So don't forget to visit designhill.com/studio and check more about it. You can find all the links in the chat section. On that note, thank you so much, Cath, for joining us today. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us today for this workshop. On that note, I would like to say a bye to each one of you who joined us here today. Take care, guys, and stay safe.